Hey guys, it's Alex, and today I'm here with a book review for The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. This book was recommended to me by Kylie Graham, who I will link down below. This is a young adult contemporary novel about Rin, whose best friend died about a year previous. Lottie was killed by a drunk driver, and the morning she died she sent Rin a text that Rin has never read. The story takes place on New Year's Eve, when Rin is trapped in an airport on her way home. She winds up accidentally swapping phones with a guy, and while trapped together in the airport, they kind of go on adventures and start a relationship. I gave this book 4 stars, and I did really enjoy it. The story flowed really well. I really enjoyed the writing style. It just all went together, and it was the kind of book that I picked up and read pretty much in one sitting. I don't think it really took me very long. Once I was invested, I was sort of in it for the long haul and just wanted to get through the story. It's written in present tense, which I normally don't like, but with this book it flowed really well and I just really wound up enjoying it. It is an emotional story. It deals with Rin's grieving process. It deals with her anxieties because in the year since her friend has died, she's become much more anxious and stressed and almost kind of OCD with intrusive thoughts. Whenever she wonders something, she has to ask her phone the question to get the answer, whether it's something completely random or something that's a more overarching question like, why are we alive? She always winds up asking Google to find the answer. And it's not so much about the answer, but rather the ability to find out. And it is touching in that way. I think the anxiety was written quite well in this book, and it was very interesting. It was a well-done part of Rin's character. But that being said, I only gave this book 4 stars, and it was kind of a weak 4 stars. I really enjoyed it a lot while I was reading it, but it's definitely one of those books that faded fast. Even just a few days after I finished it, I was already caring much less and didn't remember as much about the story, and now about a month later, I'm just not that invested. I don't really care all that much about the characters, and I think when a story is really good, I care. Months later, it still brings out those emotions in me, and this book really doesn't. It was also kind of generic. I feel like I've read this book about a dozen or 2 dozen times before. If you read a lot of issue-driven contemporaries, I don't think this book does really much of anything new. It doesn't do anything really spectacular that the other books like this don't. But if you enjoy this kind of book, I would highly recommend it. It was a fun read and a really interesting read, and I did care about the characters while I was in the process of reading it. Not everything needs to be one of those hard-hitting books that affects you a year or 2 years from now. It can just be fun in the moment, and that's what this book was for me. The main characters' names were Rin and Xander, and to me that's kind of indicative of the story overall. It was trying a little too hard to be quirky and different, but doing so in the most generic names, like with naming the characters Rin, R-Y-N, and Xander, it was just a little bit out there and a little bit over the top for my taste. I think there were certain things in this book that could have been toned down, and there were certain characters and plot lines, like when she started making friends with the girl who worked in the burger joint. It went a little bit too far for my taste, but at the end of the day, it was fun. It was enjoyable. It wasn't a YA contemporary that's going on any of my favorite lists, but it was a YA contemporary that was just a solid read, and I'd definitely be down to try more of Jessica Brody's books after this. The other thing that I'd mention is that this book is a romance, and it does hit on that trope of a guy shows up and helps a girl fix everything about her life. It's not as bad as some I've read, but it is that kind of trope. While I think it was actually okay in the context of this book, and that trope isn't one that really bothers me in general, if that kind of thing does bother you, even if the guy isn't fixing all her problems and all her problems don't get fixed, the guy was the catalyst for the change in this book. And I do think some people really don't like that, and I understand why. This book definitely falls into the category of that kind of book. I enjoyed it. If you don't mind that trope, you might too. So I would recommend this book. Just, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world for me, and I can see a lot of people giving this 3 or 4 stars. But for me, I'm very glad I read this. Let me know down below if you read The Chaos of Standing Still and what you thought of it if you did. And let me know if you've read any of Jessica Brody's other works, if she has any. I really don't know much about this author at all, but I'd be down to try some more books from her. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.